Good morning, everyone. Going to work to try to have more of a short, succinct session today. We will be working largely foot related to hip and spine, a little bit of shoulder work, but really want to kind of get something quick work into the feet. We will be using the wedge towards the end of the class for that foot mobility. Let's get started. We're going to start in quadruped, getting nice spread hands, rounded palms, extending elbows fully without locking. I'm going to go ahead and have the toes tucked underneath, especially the big toe. We're going to start with wrist mobility. Actually, we'll start with breath first. So taking some nice slow inhale breaths in through the nose. Feel that abdominal wall expand. I want to kind of have that. We're thinking like a crocodile or like a balloon. I want to see if we can feel that expansion of the abdominal wall forward into the belly, back into the low back area and out through the sides. As we exhale, we're drawing that navel up and into the spine. Feel that belly button kind of like a thumb pressing up towards your spine on that exhale. Inhale, feel that nice expansion of the abdominal wall, like you're blowing it up like a balloon. On your next inhale, we're going to let the hips start to rock back towards the heels. As we exhale, we're rocking forward, getting into the wrists. Just light load into the wrist, right wrist and left wrist. Inhale as we rock back. Kind of notice, how does this feel in those wrists? Does one wrist feel a little tighter, stiffer, achier, sensitive? Is it painful compared to the other side? And we're going to stick with just 5 or so reps. Next, we're going to turn those fingers out to the side, keeping those fingers spread. Moving side to side, again, continuing to load into the wrists. This is where I want to have that nice push-pull effect through the palms. As I'm moving away from one palm, I'm pushing. And as I'm moving towards a palm, I am pulling. And I want to feel that push-pull also at the shoulder blades along the rib cage. The more active that palm pushes, that shoulder blade is going to slide off the rib cage. And as I'm pulling, I'm going to feel that shoulder getting tight and hugging up to the spine. Next, we'll turn the fingers all the way back towards the knees. Closer the hands are, the less intense this is. The further out we go, the more intense. I don't want it to be super intense, so I'm bringing it in a little tight, keeping the palms grounded. We're now inhaling as we rock forward. Exhale as we sink our hips to the heels, keeping the palms grounded to the floor. Feeling into that forearm space. Next, we're going to flip the palms upside down to the back side. This can be a little bit of an uncomfortable position on the wrist, so I want to be light on it. We're allowing the elbows to bend to start with. We're going to push lightly into the floor to feel that length and extension at the elbows. Noticing, is there some stretchy nature to that extension of the elbows? If you feel that stretch, we want to play in the juicy nature of that stretch. Let the elbows bend, dropping down, and then exhale as we press and extend, moving lightly into that stretch and out of that stretch. If you're able to get full extension of the elbows without locking, then we're going to rock back as we exhale, hips to heels, inhale, rocking forward, making sure that we're not pushing into pain on this movement. Once we get through 5, we'll kind of take a little break on the wrists, roll them out, make sure that the wrists are not being overloaded. We'll come back to hands spread, Now we're gonna focus on toes, tucking big toe underneath. We're inhaling as we lightly rock forward. Exhale as we let our hips sink to heels. And I want to specifically feel this load into the ball of the big toe joint and the arch of the foot. Inhales, bringing us back forward. Exhales, sinking hips to heels. In order to feel this even more in that big toe, imagine that you have a tail, and as you sink back, you're lightly turning that tail up towards the ceiling. Inhale as we bring it back up. Notice your right big toe and your left big toe. Is one side stiffer, tighter, achier, more sensitive? Is it painful? If it's painful, then I want to make sure we're backing off of it and we're not pushing into pain. Next, we're going to turn those heels out and away as much as you can to get tucked all the way out to the pinky toes. Nice inhale as we're rocking forward. Exhale as we sink hips to heels. Again, lightly turning that tail up to the ceiling. Inhale brings it back forward. Notice how does the outside, the lateral arch feel on the right compared to the left side? Is one side a little tighter and a little stiffer compared to the other side? On the next inhale, as we exhale and rock back, we're going to sit into light tension, not heavy tension. And we're going to do some windshield wipers with the heels. Rolling from the pinky toe to the big toe and back out. Nice and slow and smooth. Again, I want to feel how is it different on the right foot compared to the left foot? Especially as you roll into that big toe joint. Is one side a little more sensitive, a little stiffer, a little tighter than the other one? That's a big deal, and I want to note it and pay attention to that and work on it. I want to do a little bit more work to try to get the toes to feel evenly mobile. But we have to do it without forcing through pain. Good, we'll come back to our starting point on nice spread hands, grounded palms, continuing to keep those toes tucked, but now hips are just over knees, shoulders over hands. We're going to come back into that breath. Nice inhale into the belly. Feel that expansion of the abdominal wall. And as we exhale, drawing that navel in, we're going to start to scoop. We're going to do some pelvic tilts. Exhale, scoop. Inhale, allow that pelvis to drop to the floor. Fill that belly up. The belly's going to open up more. We're going to get more sway in that low back. And then exhale, feel that nice scoop. Moving back and forth. I don't want this movement to go up into the upper back just yet. I want to try to make it focus just on the pelvis as much as possible for at least 5 reps. And then we're going to free up the rest of the spine. At this point, I want to think of the spine like a wave or a whip. The pelvis is the handle of the whip, and I want each vertebrae or each segment to move from the handle. So as I exhale and scoop, it's going to create a wave that moves up the spine as it moves up to the shoulders. We're pressing into the floor. Feel that stretch in between the shoulder blades. The wave continues to move over the top of the head to the forehead as if it's trying to reach our tailbone at this point in the middle. As we scoop, continuing to scoop, we should feel that core kind of light up on fire. And then when we bring that inhale breath, the pelvis is turning down to the floor and it's pulling each segment low back, moving up the spine. As it moves to the chest, the sternum is going to reach to the floor and the head will come up last. Exhale, scoop. Feel that wave move up the spine. Inhale. Belly opens up to the floor, sway in the back, moves up the spine nice and slow. See how smooth can you make this wave, and notice where it feels tight, restricted, clunky. At what level of the spine do you feel restriction? That's very helpful, pertinent information. We'll come back to our starting point, and now we're going to walk our hands and extend them out forward, continuing to keep them spread. I want to stay kind of in this extended position. We're going to come back into that breath with pelvic tilt. Inhale, pelvis tilts to the floor. We get a nice sway in the back. Exhale, drawing that navel in and scooping so we get a little rounded just in that low back. As we inhale, pelvis tilts to the floor. That rib is also going to be sticking out. And as we exhale and scoop, you should be able to feel that rib moving back up. Core starts to get kind of tight and engaged. I want you to notice that tightness and engagement of the core based on our exhale and scoop, because we're going to maintain that on the next one. As we inhale, exhale, scoop, feel that rib draw out down and that core engaged, and then we're reaching our sternum down to the floor, maintaining that tension in the core. Inhale, we're coming back up. We can free the core, let that rib stick out, belly opens up, big sway in the back. As we inhale, exhale, scoop, rib draws in, core is engaged, reaching sternum to the floor. Want to feel that nice stretch through the shoulder blades, shoulders and shoulder blades. Inhale, coming back up. With each one, I want to really work. Feel that core engagement before we get into the shoulders. I don't want to overstress the shoulders. I want to make sure it's not painful. But notice, how does this feel on the right shoulder compared to the left shoulder? Is one side a little tighter and stiffer than the other side? On the next one, as we exhale, dropping down, we're going to drop into light tension. I want to keep that scoop in the pelvis so the core stays lightly engaged, but we're going to stay in this bottom position, not maximum tension, light tension. And from here, we're going to push through our hands, which is going to slide the hips back and make those shoulder blades rise up to our ears. And then we're going to pull and feel the shoulder blades slide down the ribs. Spine slides forward. We're inhaling as we pull. We're exhaling as we push. As I push, again, my hips slide back. Feel those shoulder blades come up to the ears. Inhale, pull. Feel the shoulder blades slide down the rib cage. And we'll come out of that position, giving the shoulders a rest. We're going to change into our wide V-sit position. Tops of the feet are actively pulling towards the shins. Back of the knees are actively pushing down towards the floor. I want to feel those quads kind of light up. They should be engaged the more active we are at the foot and the back of the knee. Hands are coming down behind the hips, grounding palms, spiraling those elbows out and away. Feel the shoulder blades packed down and back, nice tall spine. And we're going to do our spirals or bowls of soup through the legs, focusing on the kneecaps. You're going to turn those knees out and away as if you're trying to touch the floor to the outside of the legs, and then spiraling them in like you're trying to touch the floor to the inside of the legs. We're going to inhale as the feet come up to center, exhale as we reach to the outside, inhale to center, and then exhale as we reach to the inside. I want to go very slow on this and really work squeezing into the end range on each side. And again, we're focused on turning at the knee and not at the foot. The foot is pulling straight back like you're trying to touch your shin. The knee is actively reaching down to the floor, and your kneecap, you're turning as far out and then as far in as you can without going into pain. Now notice, how does this feel on the right hip compared to the left hip? Does one side feel tighter, more restricted? Is there a little bit of a clunkiness to it? Does it feel a little grindy, or like there's some crepitus or a little popping nature to it? Especially if it's in one direction on one side and not on the other. You can also just notice, how far does that kneecap travel on your right foot, right leg compared to your left leg? How far does it travel out? How far do they travel in? And does one leg travel farther than the other? We'll come to back to our starting point with the feet straight up. We're going to bring our hands off the floor, and we're going to get into some light fold work to work the back line of the legs and a little bit into that low back. So nice inhale, fills up that belly, nice crocodile breath. Exhale as we draw that navel in. We're reaching both hands evenly. Inhale brings it all the way back up. As I do my exhale and fold, I don't want to drop the head down or reach the chest straight down to the floor, so I don't want rounding in the back. I want to keep that nice tall spine. We're inhaling, inflating that crocodile breath. Exhale as we draw that navel in. The spine stays tall. We're seeing how far can those hands slide forward. Inhale brings it all the way back up. And with each one, we're seeing if we can get a little bit more forward without forcing it. Then we're going to start to work a little bit side to side. As I go deviate off center, I want to keep shoulders and hands squared together. So as I turn, I want to make sure my shoulders are turning together and my hands are evenly square with the shoulders as I reach. Inhale, and I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. And I can play anywhere in here. I can do a light off center, or I can go all the way to the heels. I can even reach behind the heels. But whatever I do on one side, I want to do on the other side. And I want to notice, how does it feel different on one side compared to the other? Do I feel it more in the back of the legs? And if I feel it more in the back of the legs, is it more in the calf, the back of the knee, or high up into the hamstrings? Or do I feel it more in my low back? Is it more on one side low back compared to the other? The other place it might be is, as I'm reaching to my left, I might feel it more in my right adductor, or vice versa. All of those are helpful and pertinent information as far as understanding how to map out things in the body, especially when pain might be present. We're now going to shift into our shin box position. So I am in my left side shin box. My left palm is down outside my left hip, grounding through that palm, spiraling that elbow out and away so the spine gets nice and tall. Shoulders should be packed down and back. I also want my weight shifted over my left side so the right hip is off the floor. I don't want to try to keep that hip down. Shifting weight over, that hip is now free to move. So it's off the floor now, and we're going to inhale and breathe into that hip. I want to think of that inhale breath as lead weight that we're pulling down into the pelvic bowl on that opposite side hip. And as it moves into that hip, it's going to help reach that hip to the floor. It doesn't have to touch the floor, but I want to feel it drop. And I want to feel it drop without shifting weight onto it. So weight is still shifted to the left. Inhale drops into that right hip on the inhale. Exhale, we're lifting that hip up, reaching the hip bone forward and scooping into it all at the same time so that we feel that nice stretch through the front of the hip. Inhale, fills that bowl up, reaches it to the floor. Exhale, lifts and scoops. We're doing 5 of these. Again, I don't want to shift weight back. I'm not trying to force that hip to the floor. I want to see how far it can travel just with my breath, with my weight on the opposite side. And then we're going to very slowly windshield wiper across to the other side. Palm outside of the hip, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine. Inhale into that bowl. Exhale, lifts, reaches it forward, and scoops. Right off the bat, you may notice that one hip is a little tighter and more restricted than the other. My left hip is generally my tighter side. So again, feel the weight of that breath. Move that hip down. Exhale, lift, reach forward, and actively scoop like you're trying to turn that tailbone into pushing forward. Feel that stretch through the front of the hip. Should also hopefully start to feel some contraction in the glute. Once we get to 5, we're going to slowly transition to the other side. We're going to do the exact same breath into that bowl, filling it up, exhale, and scoop. But as we scoop, I want to lock into that scoop, and now our hand that is elevated and free, we're going to reach. And I want to reach directly through the opposite knee. So as I scoop that back hip and lock it in, feeling that stretch through the front, I'm now adding in reach through that knee. And as I reach, we can spread that hand and spiral it up to the ceiling and try to extend that elbow as much as possible. Inhale, we're bringing it all the way back, filling up that bowl. Feel it drop to the floor on that inhale. Exhale, lifts, scoops, reaches, spiraling that palm up and trying to extend that elbow all at the same time, really spreading those hands. The more spread and extension as you rotate into it should increase that fascial tension into the shoulders, which will really accentuate that rotational stretch down into the hip. After we do 5 on that side, nice slow windshield wiper to the other side, getting grounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder. Inhale into that back hip. Exhale, it lifts, scoops. Feel that locked in stretch on the front of that hip, and then exhale as we reach through that knee. Spread hands, extend the elbow as you reach. Inhale brings it all the way back in, filling up that hip, reach it to the floor. Exhale, lift, scoop, feel that locked in hip, and rotate and reach. Notice how does it feel on this side that is different than the other side. You might feel it more in the hip. You might feel it more in the spine on that rotation. You might feel it more in the shoulders by working that spread hands, extended elbows. You might find those shoulders a lot tighter on one side. Again, all of these are pertinent, useful bits of information, especially if you're dealing with some chronic pain. Coming back to our first side, we're now going to do a little bit of mobility on, do our leg openers on this back leg. So I'm still shifted on to my left hip, palms rounded, elbows spiraled, packed shoulder, tall spine. Inhale, filling up that crocodile breath. Exhale, we're going to lift that knee, back knee up to the ceiling, slowly squeezing into it. Inhale, bringing it back to the floor. Now, as I lift that back knee, I don't want to shift my weight into it to try to pull it up. I want to keep all my weight on the opposite side. I'm simply just opening that back knee, seeing how much can I move into it, kind of isolating that hip. Inhale, bringing it back to the floor. Notice how high does that knee go? How far does it travel? What does it feel like in that hip? And then we're very slowly going to bring it across to the other side. Rounded palm, spiraled elbow, packed shoulder, tall spine. Body weight is shifted. Nice inhale, exhale, opening up that back hip. My left hip feels tighter, does not quite travel as far, although it's pretty close. There's days where it's generally a lot tighter and more restricted than this, so this is actually a pretty good start for this left hip. On our fifth one, or after our fifth one, we're slowly transitioning back across to the other side. Now we're going to free that side hand. So I'm on my left side shin box. I'm bringing that left hand off the floor. Forearm is going to go parallel with the ceiling. I want to get back into that nice inhale breath, filling up that back pelvis. Feel it drop, reaching to the floor. Exhale, we're going to scoop, actively lifting it up, and also lift and reach through that elbow like you're trying to touch the ceiling with your elbow. Inhale, shoulder softens as we fill up that back pull, back pelvic bowl. Exhale, lifts that back bowl up, scooping it into it. I want to lock into that stretch in the back front of that back hip, and then reach and elevate through that elbow. I want to see how long can we get through this side body space on that exhale with that scoop. There could be a number of stretches, areas that you feel stretch. I should feel that back hip having some level of stretch through the front. And then can you feel some stretch maybe through the elbows, pits, or side body? Preferably we're able to feel it all the way down from elbow through armpits down into that side body and hip. We'll switch, do the same thing on the other side. Again, arms coming up, forearm flush with the ceiling. Inhale into that back pelvic bowl. Exhale, lift, scoop into it. Feel that active scoop, and then reach through that elbow, trying to get nice and tall. Inhale, filling up that back bowl again. Exhale, get that locked in hip first, and then reach through that elbow. How does it feel on this side that's different than the other side? Generally, one side is going to be less mobile, which means you're going to feel some tightness and restrictions in areas that aren't on the other side. Again, pertinent, useful, relevant information in understanding what's going on in our body and getting things to move better. This side is tighter for me. Left hip, although left hip is not that this is actually reasonable for my left hip, it's more my right side body that I'm feeling some tightness and restriction on. We'll come back to first side. Now we're going to get into our folds. And for folds, we're just going to go side to side with it. So I'm not going to be too focused on the angle of our fold. And in fact, I'm going to give some areas from variation. We can reach straight through that shin in front of us. We can turn a little bit and reach through our knee. We can reach beyond our knee, or we can go against the grain, reaching back across the body. All of those are options. So we can be a little bit exploratory here as long as it is not painful. We're not pushing through pain or into pain. It is okay to explore lightly. But whatever we do on one side, as we nice exhale, reaching and folding into it, As we come up, we're going to go all the way across, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So whatever angle you choose on one, choose the same angle on the other. But as you go back and forth, you do not have to only work one angle. You can get exploratory. And what I would recommend here is where it feels tight and restricted, that is the area that I would recommend going and exploring lightly and seeing how does it feel on the other side. Is it tight and restricted on one side? Is it tight and restricted on both? Or is it predominantly one-sided in nature? As we fold, again, I want to keep the spine tall, so I don't want to drop head or drop this chest. Keep that nice tall spine, hands slide forward. Inhale brings it all the way back up as we then move to the other side. With each one, we're seeing if we can get a little bit longer through those fingers. Can we reach, keeping that nice length through the spine? Once we've gone back and forth 3 to 5 times, we're going to start to change the position of our hips. So now I'm going to start to open up that shin box a little bit by sliding that back leg open just a little bit more. Continuing to add in our nice slow fold and reach. Inhale, bring that leg back in as we go across, and then opening up that leg to the same position on the other side. By changing that shin box position, that's going to elicit a little bit different mobility feedback in that back hip. So I want to be open and present to what it is that you're feeling. When I'm on my left side, my right hip feels pretty free. I get real good, not a lot of tightness and tension. I'm able to feel that nice stretch in that left hip. When I come to my right side, I have a significant amount of tightness and tension in my left hip that's not on the other side, especially as I get into my nice reach. So I want to play with that. I want to see if I can get those to feel a little bit more similar on each side instead of dissimilar. As we go back and forth, we're continuing to open up that back leg more and more till it gets into a little bit closer to what we would consider a yoga class pigeon pose. Although I do not want to force that end range pose, I simply want to move as close to it as I can without going into pain, without forcing it. That left hip is loosening up a good amount now. So we're going to get into a nice wide stance. I have the wedge nearby. We're not going to use it right off the bat. My feet are perfectly forward. I'm going to start on my right foot. So I'm bringing my right foot just a little bit forward of the left foot. I want to work on spreading the toes, the ball of the foot as wide as possible. And we're going to lightly lift the heel off the floor. And we can lift the heel just enough that a piece of paper can slide underneath it. I don't want to go too high. I want to keep it just barely off the floor. We're then going to shift weight a little bit onto that leg. If you need to have a staff or something to hand hold onto for support, that is okay. We're going to start with just some knee rotations. So turning the knee in and then rotating the knee out. However, as I'm moving my knee, I want to maintain grounding through the ball of the big toe and pinky toe. So if I turn that knee in so much that that ball of the pinky toe starts to lift, I'm not in video, so if I turn in to where that ball of the pinky toe starts to lift off the floor, I'm going too far. That ball of the pinky toe needs to stay loaded. If I go too far out, the ball of the big toe is going to come up. I want to make sure it stays grounded. I want to feel downward pressure in both, whether I'm rolling in and out. As we're doing this, notice as the knee rolls out, the heel turns in, and as the knee turns in, the heel starts to turn out. With that forefoot grounded to the floor and the heel turning back and forth, it means we're wringing out the midfoot, all those nice joints getting wrung out, getting mobilized in a way that they generally don't. We're then going to shift and switch to the other side. So foot's coming forward lightly, spreading the toes, lightly lifting the heel, shifting weight over onto that side just a little bit, and then working that same rotation through the knee, making sure that the ball of the foot, big toe to pinky toe, all remain rounded to the floor. Notice if this foot feels tighter and more restricted, especially through the arch of the foot. We're going to switch back to the other foot, and now we're going to go ahead and get out our wedge. So, wedge is going to go at a 45-degree angle into the big toe joint. As we slide it, it's going to go underneath the ball of the big toe, ball of the second toe, and maybe a little bit underneath the ball of the third toe, but the fourth and fifth toes are still on the floor. The balls of the big fourth and fifth are still on the floor. The toes themselves can be on the wedge. Again, slightly lifting that heel up, a little bit of a weight shift over that side, and we're doing the same thing. Knee flat rotates in and then slightly out. And as we roll that knee in and out, I want to maintain constant grounding through the ball of the big toe and pinky toe. Now with the wedge here, it's preloading that ball of the foot, so we're going to get a little bit more stretch into the arch of the foot, especially as we internally rotate. However, it's also going to be real easy to roll onto the outside ball of the foot and to lose contact with that big toe. So we have to maintain pressure as we roll out, which you might feel a little bit more in the arch of the foot. Again, 5 or so, be good on this. And now we're going to do something we didn't do before. I'm keeping that wedge under my right foot. I'm now going to bring my left foot forward. From here, I'm actively reaching that heel to the floor, actively straightening the knee like I'm trying to touch the wall behind. If I shift my weight a little bit to my left foot as I'm maintaining heel down and knee to the back, you should possibly feel a little bit of length stretch through the front of that back hip. From here, we're going to let that back knee soften, reach it down to the floor as we push into that ball of the foot, driving the heel up to the ceiling so that we get a nice stretch on the ball of the foot. Inhale, we're reaching that heel back to the floor, grounding it down and actively straightening that knee, so like we're trying to touch the wall behind us. See if you feel that stretch. Then let that knee soften, drive that heel up to the ceiling. Inhale as we bring it back down. Once we get a few reps of pushing into that big toe, bringing it back down, I want to make sure that this is not painful. If it's not painful and you're able to drive up, you can also do a little bit of rolling it out to the ball of the big pinky toe and then back to the big toe. Notice the knee is kind of rolling out and then rolling back in. Just feeling that nice mobility along the ball of the foot. Bring it back down, and now we're going to switch to the other side. So, left foot slightly forward, bringing that wedge at a 45-degree angle so that it goes underneath the ball of the big toe, second toe, and third toe. Fourth and fifth ball of the fourth and fifth are still on the floor. Lightly lifting that heel up. Again, my weight is slightly shifted over.
We're working keep the ball of the foot nice and spread and grounded as that knee starts to roll out and back in. And how does it feel through that arch of the foot on this side that's different than the way it was on the other side? My left foot tends to be the stiffer foot. It tends to be more of a supinated foot. My whole left hip tends to be tighter than my right, largely because my left hip compensates for instability in my right knee. So this is a lot tighter, especially through the outer part of the calf. Once we get 5 or so in, we're going to bring that back foot, move back a little bit. We're going to step that back foot forward. We're going to actively reach that heel to the floor, actively reach the knee to the wall behind us. Keep our weight shifted more front foot so that we can feel a little bit of length through that front of the back hip. Softening the knee, letting it drop, planting into the ball of the foot as we press that heel up to the ceiling. And then inhale as we reach that heel back to the floor, actively straightening that knee. Notice where is it a bigger stretch on this side? Does this foot feel stiffer or did the other foot feel stiffer? Differences in the right foot and left foot as far as mobility and stiffness are massively important. Your foot is going to direct how movement is flowing through all the other joints in your body. And if your right foot and your left foot move differently, that means your hips and your spine are going to be moving differently through the right side of your body than they do on the left. And that's going to create some significant imbalances that are going to show up in your gait mechanics. As we get a good number on this next one, as we reach up, we can come back to kind of rolling out to the pinky toe and back to the big toe. Again, being soft, non-painful, non-forceful. This left foot and ankle are a little tighter and stiffer than the right. Then we can bring that heel back down and actively straighten the knee. And then we're going to get onto the floor, onto our back, feet hip width apart, arms coming up into a nice big Y shape. And we're just going to finish with some nice, slow, simple baby roll stretch. Keep a little bit, about 5 pounds of pressure through the heels, pushing down into the floor evenly. Taking a nice inhale, filling up that crocodile breath. On our exhale, head comes up, shoulder comes up as we reach through our fingers to match our hands. Trying to reach through those fingers. Inhale as I bring it all the way down to the floor. Exhale as I reach across to the other side. I want to make sure if there's no back pain, there's no discomfort on this in the low back or hips. As we move side to side, again, keeping that even weight through the heels. Start to notice, how does this feel when you reach with your right hand compared to reaching with your left hand? Does one side feel easier than the other? Does one side feel tighter and more restricted? As we get a little bit more looser into this, I want to start to reach through the toes as you reach through your fingertips. Try to get as long through toe tip and fingertip as you can, moving in each direction. We'll come back to center. We're going to do the same thing, reaching through the legs. One leg's going to come up off the floor. I want to keep it elevated high, so like you're reaching up onto a shelf. And as you reach, I'm going to switch sides, as you reach up and away, it's going to lift your shoulder blade off the floor. I want to keep reaching. I want to keep some contact with the back of the hand, but allow that shoulder to get pulled up as you reach through those toe tips. Inhale brings it back down. Exhale as we reach across to the other side. And again, I'm paying attention to how does it feel right side compared to left side. As I'm getting into it, as long as it is not painful or stressful, we can start to counter reach through our fingertips. So I'm reaching through those toe tips as far as I can. I'm counter reaching through my fingertips, trying to get that nice drawn out traction stretch all the way through, fingertip to toe tip. So I can feel it in the hips and in this low back, even up into the shoulders. Then when we come back down to the floor, relax the legs. You can bring your feet up flat. Arms are down at your side with the palms up. And taking some nice deep breaths in through the nose, filling up our crocodile breath. Feel that expansion of the abdominal wall, not just forward into the belly, but also out through the sides and into that low back space like a balloon. Exhale. Feel the tension of your body melt into the floor. Start to bring that breath up into the chest, neck, shoulder area. Feel that inflation, that expansion on the inhale, filling into tension, and then on the exhale, we're releasing tension to the floor. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, very slowly get up, and check in with your body, and then you're ready to move through your day.